Hey, started off before the best line. Some good left in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. That's like the whole thing. Wow. This reminds me of the, I haven't thought about this in forever. My parents, you know who my parents are? Yeah. So the only thing in my entire childhood that I ever remember being kind of Hollywood, because we just lived like normal people, was New Year's Eve. They'd set up a tent like this, and people would come, and my brothers and I would, well, we couldn't park the cars, but we were like greeting people at their cars. We were like the car greeters. So I'm definitely remembering at the end of those nights when all the grown-ups had left their unfinished alcohol on the table. I'm not saying anything else.
So growing up with famous parents is acting something that you always want to get involved in?
I mean, you can't say anything else because I was so young when I started. Yeah, my parents just kind of, it's just part of our, it was like breathing. Just breathing, acting, breathing. And something, you know, you make your own little, raise your hand, you have kids? Raise your hand if you got kids. Wow. There's a lot of lazy Midwesterners out there. If you don't know how to make kids, totally easy. I have 3 daughters. Like, you know how you put on, the kids put on skits in the house, you know, my daughter's always making little short films and things. It was like that. Only because the industry was so small back then, and my parents were so kind of, you know, known, and their agents were known, somehow we were able to, I mean, it sounds so unfair to think that it was easy, but it was kind of easy for, in my situation, and we kind of thought of it as the same thing, only there was money, which is good. Money's good.
Money is good.
Not ill-gotten gains, I know what those are. Earn, you know, money that you work for.
So, growing up in the spotlight, you see what can happen when you go down the wrong path. What do you think? Do you think that your parents made going the way around Hollywood, which actually kind of going down the path and not sometimes feel like a little stuff over?
I think I was lucky on a lot of levels not to end up in a kind of drug situation or any of the other kind of classic issues that young performers have. You know, even when I would experiment with stuff when I was a kid, it never quite took. And I was always surrounded by people who were kind of doing, you know, who had ambition or had a sense of, you know, doing what was right. So I was my parents' value system and getting lucky. I also think like my physical constitution, I don't think I can do drugs. I think if I did drugs, anybody who knows me knows that I'm sort of spastic, hyper, but I'm slowing down a little bit. I'm 46 now, and the kids are getting on in years, and so I'm nice and lazy now. But my kind of natural state is hyper. And I just don't know if hyper goes well with a lot of different drugs. I think I would have an embolism or something like that. It's just never, you know, I was already, my natural insanity was more than enough to keep me busy. You know.
I wouldn't say you're slowing down. He's officially an Iron Man. So,
do you not know what an Iron Man is? Or are you just jealous? Come on. So, I was an Iron Man. I completed the Iron Man triathlon 2 years ago, and since then I've done nothing but get fat, which is annoying. So annoying. Oh, don't even. I'm hoping it was one of, you know, we're in a trough. There's another peak coming. But no, I was flying in today from Boston, and before that I'd been in New York, and I'm landing in Chicago, and I'm like, New York, Boston, Chicago, all cities that I run the marathon trail. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Somehow I fit Stranger Things in there.
Has anybody not seen Stranger Things season 2 yet?
This guy.
What's wrong with the left?
I think there's, pretty sure if you have seen Stranger Things too. Okay, so there's some spoiler stuff we should be able to talk about. So, I think you're gonna have to. I think actually it's the kind of thing where even if you know it, if you're kind of a fan of the genre, you can just watch it and enjoy it. You just don't have the same level of uncertainty that other people have. But I feel of other horror movies, by the way. I am constantly annoyed at these wonderful horror films who invite me to come to their shows and then don't talk about all the horror movies I know. I was in Cabin Fever 3, Patient Zero. I was Patient Zero. It was awesome. You wouldn't think necessarily that the third in that beloved franchise. I was awesome and it was fantastic. I think you guys should definitely see it. I did a movie called Borderland, which is truly a depraved, horrible, almost nothing redeemable about it at all movie. So you're like, right? My dad, I started showing my dad a scene that I'm in where I've got this kid held. I'm keeping him hostage while the voodoo Santorian cult is ready to do cannibalism, and it's so bad. But I did it because I was like, okay, I'll do that. We filmed in the middle of the Mexican desert. It was really fun. I started showing my dad this scene, and he literally gets up. I've never seen him do anything like it. I'm not watching this, and he just walks out. He just did not I get a machete that had The Strain. You guys ever watch The Strain? I'm good at dying. I'm a good dyer. Lots of, yeah. Oh, I wish I have a photo from the Stranger Things set that was filmed on the last day of filming ever, and I'm in those scrubs that I'm in that one shop. Okay. So it's my wife and 2 daughters and I are in it, and I haven't been posting it because it's so grim, and it's really grim. But it's kind of funny and kind of grim. And but I didn't know if it's like is it too soon?
Never too soon.
Never too soon. None of you are going to be on my PR team. All get me in trouble with Netflix, and I want Netflix to like me. Yeah. So anyhow, all right. So did I mention? Yeah. Vampires, voodoo, cannibal cults, kind of other mass infection. I belong in this place. All you want to do is talk about the Goonies. Massacre Haunted House. That's what I'm looking at. Massacre Haunted House.
What do you find the most fun being able to take over yourself now? Because it's such a stark.
Well, I hate watching those movies. I don't like that. That sensation. Raise your hand if you like that sensation. Okay, I think most of the people who just raised their hands did it out of peer pressure. Honestly, who genuinely? I see Jason with a ski mask on. I expect you to feel that way. No, but honestly, I'm in a new horror movie. How do you not know? You're all not really. This is like Alan's fault. Something's not right here. This is not my life. Dead Ant. It premiered Scarefest in LA at the Chinese Roman Theater just like less than a month ago. It is an homage to those great 1970s like arachnid movies, you know? Oh my God, it is so good. And again, doesn't go well for me. I actually had to do the makeup, the like 6-hour, 7-hour prosthetic thing. I hate that. Hate it. I hate everything about it. The only thing I do like though is when you're actually shooting it, when all the makeup is on or all whatever, and you're trying to create the effect. I really like that. I get excited knowing like this is going to be something that really grabs the audience, or this is something that is going to make them feel something, feel sad or feel scared or something. And then when I watch it, it's usually months later that I get to see it. You're like, oh, yes, it works. They're going to be scared. But like with Stranger Things, I did not want to watch Stranger Things because I'm like, things are going to come through the house or the window. I don't know. So what I did though, because I had to watch it, was I put the headphones on, the Bose headsets, noise canceling reduction headsets, closed all the windows in the room, crawled under the covers, pillow, made like a little fort over my head, and I watched it and I said, okay. when this, instead of, the thing is you watch the whole thing and you're like, it's a crunch, it's better than an ad machine. They should actually sell that on those channels. We're like, oh, this is the ad machine. They'd be like, ooh, watch a horror movie. Like, for the whole thing. So, but I thought, okay, when it happens, whatever, the thing jumps out at you, whatever, I'm just gonna I'm not gonna jump and be scared. I'm just relax and just feel what it feels like and let it flow. And so a scary thing would happen, and it was like warm water being poured into your veins. And I'm like, I think I get what people like about this. It's kind of tingly. But I worked with Finn in Stranger Things, and we've spent good time talking to each other.
Good at the show.
Has he? What? Right. Oh, I bet you know his movie. That one. Like, I love you, but I can't watch that movie. It's too scary. I have kids. I have to look them in the eye. They're like, is everything okay? You're like, no. Terrifying. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Dead Ant. Coming to, I don't know if you'll want to download it near you.
So what are your approach for a role? What goes into it for you to decide whether you want to take a project on?
The biggest thing for me is, can I do it? If I'm approached, if somebody wants me to be in the show. It's different if there's something that's out there that you might want to go pursue. And it seems like they're two different baskets. One is what you seek out, the other is what seeks you out. And if somebody's seeking me out, the first thing I think is can I do whatever it is? Is it a horror movie, is it a comedy, is it romance? Based on how I look and feel today, can I feel credible doing whatever it is that's being asked of me? There are lots of reasons to pursue something. With something like Stranger Things, this is a big cultural phenomenon. They created this incredibly cool world with the Upside Down, and Eleven is such a striking character, and they've taken 80s nostalgia and they've kind of, they've surgically approached how to give people who grew up in that time that feeling that they're back in that time again. So that was worth trying to figure out. Bob, newbie, superhero, aka Papa Brain.
Yep.
Yeah.
Easy peasy. I mean, it was literally like catchphrase pickup truck. They kept showing up. You're like, I don't think we can do another catchphrase. Automobile. You go for riding the automobile? I say that, and I'm like, I'm going to be autographing automobile for the rest of the yeah, so that being a part of working with those actors and working with the Duffer Brothers, that was a pretty easy thing to do. But Bob himself was like, well, if you do feel bad for him. But they didn't know what they wanted to do with him. But what I was thinking is my daughter, I have 3 daughters, my 12-year-old daughter, Bella, binge watched the whole season along with the rest of the world. And it was like Friday, it came out Thursday night at 12:01 or Friday morning, 12:01 a.m. And she got home, I don't know, whatever it was Friday night, 7 or 8 o'clock she started, watched 5 episodes, slept for 6 hours, got up and watched the rest of it. So she looked, like we all look after you binge something with your hair messed up and you're kind of you have to blink. You and I, you have to watch 9 hours of show without blinking. And I actually got my phone out and I started interviewing her the second to last. When the last credit comes up. And I was like, oh, can I interview you for a second? She's like, oh, okay. And I, what do you think of Bob? And she said, well, she refers to him in the third person. I'm Bob. And she's so sophisticated about storylines. She loves Flash and The Arrow and all those shows. And any grown-ups that I know have any questions about it, I put them on to her. And she's like, well, the third season, they decided to go back to the storyline for the thing. But the character had an issue, like she's, like a little 45-year-old. I don't know. She's weird. So she's talking about Stranger Things. And I said, what do you think about me? And she goes, well, Bob, when he's watching the show with the kids, I said, what movie are they watching? She goes, no, I got no, tell me, is Mr. Mom, Mr. Mom. And I was like, yes, Mr. Mom. And she remembered, and she'd never seen that movie, but she remembered, yeah, Mr. Mom. She goes, I kept thinking, that's Dad. Watching that movie, laughing really hard, and we're like, so Bob was not that hard to do. The thing about Bob is I just have to be 46, and I have to be myself, and somehow that's enough. I get to kiss from Little Rider.
Yes.
Yeah, like she's the reason that she was obviously another topper, and just follow her around.
Yeah, really.
The coolest, my favorite line in the whole show is when we rescue Hopper and we kind of get him unstuck from those vines and we stand up and we're kind of like breathing, he's breathing heavy, you just got all these monsters off him or whatever, and we're standing there for a second and he goes, hey Bob. And then the guys with the flames come in and like, no, you know what? Bob would do it again. Bob is very much like Sam Westwood. All right.
I do have a question. Let's continue with the Stranger Things stuff. My wife and I were watching it, and you were leering at your character at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't know if you were working for Paul Reiser's character and that company and all that. Was that ever brought up?
I only saw that when reading comments, from the thing, and a lot of people read it when it first came out. I was up in the middle of the night with everybody else Friday morning. Oh, he's gonna be bad. Oh, he's part of the thing, and all of a sudden I regretted the whole character, and I'm like, that would have been awesome. If he was like a spy sent in, like, yeah, that would have been cool. No, Bob is, but get what you see with old Bob. There's been some cool fan discussions about Maine and it, and you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, like maybe that we're related or something. There was one where Bob's not dead. Bob is actually a Demogorgon. He's like the original Demogorgon. He reconstitutes his body, and he's pulling the strings with all the other that he's at the end of the rainbow kind of thing, which is it gets bridged too far, man. I don't quite think that's gonna happen.
They relate the crew for Stranger Things, the younger guys, a lot with Goonies and things. Did you see anything in them that you remember within yourself from the movie?
Well, absolutely, yeah. I mean, they're the appropriate description is young performers. That's the kid actors is kind of an insult in the parlance of the industry. They're young performers, but we're kids. I was a kid. They're kids. They're riding bikes. I'm riding bikes. Like that. Their experience of when we took the Warner Brothers Studios back lot by storm. That was like our playground. And this is filmed Stranger Things is filmed in Atlanta, but these young performers, these kids, and they're like well into their teens now, I think. At least they seem like it. They seem older than they are. I guess maybe all of pop culture is their backlog. Because magazines and Twitter and award shows and stuff like that, and they all seem to be handling it so with such good humor and kind of balance. So yeah, I definitely felt like I was revisiting my childhood experience. Only they're smarter than I was. It's not a high bar. I'm just saying. I mean, they're really thoughtful. They're the beneficiaries of decades of movies with kids in them that became popular, and you see what happens to the young performers when they go through, finish their adolescence, and then some transition to working in the industry, some don't, some have problems. Their parents, their guardians, they're the beneficiaries of all that, and they seem to have kind of organized it well in their minds, and they're doing well. They're definitely. I don't think I could have ever. I still can't play Dungeons and Dragons. Are you guys Dungeons and Dragons people? I like the role playing thing. I'd like storytelling, but the whole setup that these kids are doing at the beginning of it, I'm like, can I just get on my bike and go somewhere? Yeah, so the answer is yes.
And did you find that you gave them any advice on how to stay on the right path and keep going the route that they're going?
No, I don't think I gave them specific kind of like, you know, how to avoid classic pitfall, drugs, and, you know, really pride, arrogance. Those are the things you really have to, and a sense of entitlement. You know, when you're so young, and all of a sudden, all this stuff is just, you know, at your fingertips. It's really hard to imagine a world where that's not happening. And if you expect that to continue, you're in trouble. But they didn't seem to need that. We talked about, Noah and I talked a little bit about emotions. You know, I had shared stories with him about my progression through different characters and how I use, you know, how I approach being emotional on the street. Because he gives this incredible performance this year. He'll get nominated for an Emmy without. Oh yeah, I mean he's just incredible. Just sitting there watching this little kid on a gurney being possessed by this demigorgon. Oh, he was terrified. The one thing we were rehearsing, you know, initially what happens is you get to the set and the director's there and the actors are there. And there may be one other person, and they kind of, the rest of the crew is asked to step away. And you kind of talk through it a little bit, and maybe you run it a few times and then you block it. And once you get it where you think it's going to work, you bring in the cinematographer, you kind of talk about that a little bit. Then the whole crew comes and they watch kind of like the rehearsal. And the very first second, right out of the box on one of these things, he's at like, you know, pun intended, he's at 11. You know what I mean? You're like, dude, you got to trigger everything. We're going to do 5 or 6 more rehearsals. You're going to show up to the crew. We're going to take a break while they light for the next hour and a half. Then you're going to come back here. If you like scream yourself stupid before you even rehearse it, you have to know how to. But that's what's so cool about those kids is they're ready. They're ready to go. You know, and it takes patience to, you know, protect them from that. But, yeah.
I read that the boys were huge Lord of the Rings fans. How did the first meeting go?
Well, when you go to like the Screen Actors Guild Awards, or you go to the Oscars or something like that, and there's one of these tents set next to the actual award show, and you go in there and it's where all the actors are kind of like, you know, gathered. It's really funny to watch because everybody is a huge fan of everybody else. So everybody's feeling awkward and fangirl. And, you know, and you'll see one person occasionally who's stoic and not aware of it, and you're like, okay, right. But it was kind of like that. I got to the set and I was like, oh my God. I just watched all Stranger Things. I was a big fan of theirs. And I was like, oh my God. So it was that kind of excitement and sharing stories and everything else. But you're also professionals. You're in a setting where you're supposed to, you know, there's like an appropriate amount of time for that. We didn't get together like at the park on Saturday before filming on Monday to just, you know, wax nostalgic. You kind of fit in your enthusiasm and your stories as appropriate for that day. So it's the thing to take away if you're not part of it is how mature these young performers are. And everybody knows what they're supposed to do. You know your lines, you know when you're supposed to work on your lines, you know the rhythm of the shooting day, and it's just very grown up and professional, and you know they have fun, they bounce around and, you know, goof off a little bit, but not too much. You know, they're close. So, and then like every show, when you first meet, there's a kind of awkwardness, but we were all really excited to share. We're all very open to people, always. So, yeah. Fawning, that's the word.
So I want to move on to Laura for a little bit. And you actually wrote a great book called There and Back Again. If anybody hasn't read that, please go to it.
There and Back Again, an actor's tale.
Correct.
There and Back Again was originally called by Tolkien. I'm sort of playing on the words. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, okay.
Reading the book younger and having seen growing up watching you, I always thought of you. So, what did you have to audition? Did they come to you?
Yeah, Lord of the Rings. The cool thing was my dad was in Frighteners. He was in the Frighteners, which is Peter Jackson's big Universal movie before that. He played the judge. Character who had been dead for 100 years. He had the bones sticking out. He had his bloodhound was all bleeding, crackling dead. Kind of like awesome. So I knew all about what was going on. They actually called me, my dad and Michael J. Fox, and Peter Jackson, and Fran Walsh, called me from their garage, from Peter's garage screening room, like a couple years earlier, to tell me that they had just watched Rudy in their garage screening room. So I felt like a big shot. It's nice when you get moments of feeling a big shot. It doesn't last long. Soak it up. So when it came time to audition for it, I knew that they knew me, so that made it feel much more comfortable. But I auditioned for the casting director on tape. You know what tape is? And they sent that back down to New Zealand, and then Peter and Fran came to LA, and I went in and auditioned for them. So it was really two moments of auditions. There was a lot of waiting between.
Rudy is the best audition for a character. I think he does. Overcomes the odds. He's a great underdog, and nobody thought he could do it.
Just as playing Sam is the best audition to play Bob. So I keep going like that. No, it really is. It really is. And the irony for me sitting here today is that I was too skinny. I just run the LA Marathon, and they were like, "We're not sure if it's supposed to be stupid fat hobbit." That's what all it keeps calling him. Second breakfast, lunches, taters. Actually, if you eat the right amount of fish to taters ratio, that's the zone diet. Right? It's not like he's just eating, well, maybe he does just eat. You remember that salt? The elves give him a little box of salt. I don't know if we ever used it. Have you ever used that in the movie? You ever see it? Well, anytime Sam was rummaging around, I would look at that. So, yeah, I mean, what can I say? It was, I think most of the parts that have been my kind of signature parts in my life and my career are very close to my own, to something in me that is, like that. I was Rudy when I was a kid. I was not very good at any of the sports I wanted to play, but I always wanted to play. I hustled really hard trying to get in the game, get on the team. Even when my dad was coaching, it was hard to get in the game. That's rough.
I know you were on Cool Air about 2 weeks ago, I think, today?
Last week?
Last week.
Yeah.
And he's obviously a really good game. But there's something about you didn't really a fan of the series and hadn't really read it before you.
That's sort of an old story. I'm not a big fan of the way they prep those interviews and stuff. They should have just let me talk. In fact, we talked for like 7 or 8 minutes longer than was in the interview, and they, of course, it's his second guest on the show, and they cut it all out. But I started asking him questions about, I'm like, so let's talk about Sam Weiss-Gamgee being invited or accorded the honor to go with the elves for the Grey Havens. And he was like, yes, and he gave a more literary kind of explanation of that. And I said, but doesn't it kind of suck that he didn't get married with Rosie Cotton? I mean, she gave him 15 Hobbit babies and all that. And he's like, well, once we get her to the ground, we're going to the Grey Havens later. That's not right. So he didn't have a good answer to that. But I started asking about the elven rope. Elven rope is magical, but he kind of busted me on the use of the word magic. He said, there's not magic. He said, that's a human word. The elves don't have magic. And he started describing the energy that they have and how that operates on the rope and something like that. So the audience there that night got a really cool, and at a certain point when we were talking, all of a sudden, we were just 2 guys talking. And I was really listening to him and really learning from him. So we weren't doing that thing where you're performing, you know what I mean? You kind of perform an answer. And I was really interested in what he was saying because I knew I would be. And I knew his fans would like that. And the TV audience at home would like it. but they have their little structures that they put on those things.
Maybe the movie's online or something.
I don't think so, not yet, not yet. He said something, he said, I didn't follow what he was saying when he first started talking because I had done this goofy thing where I came out of my underwear during his rehearsal and he showed that, and I was just doing it because my daughter told me not to embarrass the family. And she said that, so I'm like, I'm gonna embarrass the family anyway, huh? And I watched her on FaceTime watch the thing, play back, and she liked it. And I was like, okay, she liked it. But when he came back from that, I was like, I wasn't sure what he was saying. He was saying that he felt like the cheerleader meeting the captain of the football team or something.
Yeah.
I didn't even track what he was saying. And I'm the captain of the football team.
Right.
Yeah, but I was too busy thinking about it. I was the guy in the underwear looking like an idiot. But no, his scholarship at Lord of the Rings is pretty insane.
Right. So, a couple of those things. I know that you are Peter Jackson, you didn't decide what things you did.
Correct.
So,
I fought for certain things.
I've seen, I think, every version of the film you can, but right after you guys did the Shire, right after the point where you talked to Fred and said this is as far as I've ever been, you run into a character named Tom Baldwin.
Who's we?
You, Fred. And
I guess I'm locked into thinking of me as Sam in the movie and not me as Sam in the book. The Sam in the book definitely runs into Tom Baldwin's truth. Sam in the movie was spared that.
right.
Peter was absolutely good. And I like reading aloud and like reading those songs that he does. They're hard to do. But Peter just said, the plot, there's no plot in that. It's just like, you're in the woods with a guy singing for 4 chapters or something. He's like, you want to know what's going on with the ring.
Yeah, so he took the ring, as soon as the measure guys put it on, he's like, I'm not really a big fan of jewelry, and he gave it right back. He's the most powerful being in the middle of the ring.
It's the most useless narrative structure. I mean,
It's true.
yeah, that's what
It is not in there with a bunch
The
of
ring doesn't have any power on Tom Bombadil.
Yeah.
I think
that's why it's not the movie, right?
Still in the moment when he was writing for his son, like that paternal, putting you to sleep with the whimsical stories and stuff like that. Because it definitely isn't structured, like it's not connected to anything else. So I think Peter made a good call not putting Tom on the
And especially, I know you guys all got tattoos and Elvish of,
That are not, yeah.
Yeah,
Most people have way cooler tattoos. We just
John, why didn't John Reed Davis get one?
John Reese Davis. He lives in the Isle of Man, otherwise known as 10,000 alcoholics clinging to a rock and little Irish sea. Tell you the pieces of that. My dear boy, we'd walk onto the set and I'd be like, very dangerous, you go first. They're digging in the wrong place. You go first. At a certain point he goes, my dear boy, occasionally it borders on vanity. He just didn't like it. He didn't like tattooing. He thought it was, he thought needles, like maybe there's, if you go behind somebody after they have a needle and they've got tattooing. I think he thought we were all diseased. I'm not sure. He just didn't like it. He didn't like it. Brett, who was his double, who spent an awful lot of time at Gimli makeup and doing stunts and stuff, he got it. But I wonder if he ultimately, is there any story about John ultimately doing that? I heard the story that Orlando hogtied Sean Bean and sort of, sailor style, forced him to get it. Yeah. So, I didn't like the idea when I first, it wasn't that I didn't like the idea. When Elijah was promoting it from like the second we got to New Zealand. And I was like, in his mind, we were all best friends, and we were going to be best friends for the rest of our life. And I was like, he's young. He doesn't understand that when the movie finishes, people go on, they do other movies, they live their lives. It's not like this. But he didn't care. As far as he was concerned, it was like, yeah, it is like this. And in a sense, he's right. Because no matter where I am on the planet for the rest of my life, I only have to hear, and this is not just true of Lord of the Rings. I did Memphis Belle, any of those actors that I worked with on Memphis Belle, a lot of the movies I've been in, you can hear just a syllable out of the mouth, like over the phone, of one of those characters, and you know exactly who it is. Like you were absolutely linked with them forever. So as it got towards the end of the filming, I started telling my wife I think I want to do this. She's like, no, do you really want to do that? I said, I really do. And she was sort of shocked that I would want to do that. She thought that it was not my character or my personality to do that. But when we did it, it was like nothing is ever, I've never regretted it for a second. Nothing felt more right. And I remember going to Peter Jackson's house and saw him like at the garage, at the gate into his house, and the gate was going, Peter, I have to show you something. And I showed him the tattoo. And he was like visibly moved that it meant enough to us to do that. Yeah. But we were crazy. He saw us do crazy stuff for a year and a half. I didn't know why that would be more, I didn't want to bungee jump either, and then I bungee jumped. Things happen. I don't know. You just do it.
I know that they did not get anything cast for a movie award back then up too well, especially with Jonathan King. I thought it was fucking travesty. If anybody deserved Best Supporting Actor, it's Samwise fucking Gamgee.
Sometimes we'll go back and look at the movies that won Best Picture in the years that they won. I mean, all through the history of the Academy. I love the Motion Picture Academy. I've been in it since I was, I think, 19. I was sponsored into it by a producer that I worked for, and I think I got Dick Donner and I think Bills of Justice were you guys don't know him, but he's an Academy Award winning producer. They signed me in, and so that means that for my entire life I've been getting all of the DVDs that they send out, the screeners. Oh, that's so good. They have these screeners, but my dad and I love to talk at the end of the year about what we think about different movies, and we lobby each other. And my biggest accomplishment I've ever had in my life isn't being married for 26 years or having 3 daughters. My oldest is in Harvard.
Wow.
Sorry, I got that far. I got 45 minutes into a conversation without mentioning that. So it's not doing the Iron Man. It's not starring in all these movies. What am I even talking about? My biggest accomplishment is convincing my dad. Well, you can never. He's a purist, and he would never tell you what he was going to vote for Best Picture. But we would have a conversation, and you can tell in a conversation if you've got somebody kind of. He wanted to vote for Topsy Turvy, which is a great movie, as Best Picture, and I lobbied him heavily into voting for the movie with Al Pacino and Russell Crowe about the tobacco movie. The Insider, thank you. The Insider. I said, Dad, what are we saying is the Academy? Those performances by those actors are not necessarily way outside of their wheelhouse. I said, but the ability to get a major studio to spend money going after a company, after an industry that has as much power, lobbying power, influence as it does, I think the Academy, choosing to lift that up is an important kind of historical moment, and it's the kind of thing. Anyway, I made this whole case to him, and I think I got it. That's my biggest accomplishment. My dad is very opinionated. So I love that. So when it came to Samwise Gamgee getting nominated, I know that it's marketing. And they were, New Line was promoting Ian McKellen. I think they were trying to get Andy Serkis, even though that was a little more outside the box. How do you, try to get him recognized? Vigo and me is who I think they were pursuing it, and it all came down to the Golden Globes. Now my mom wanted a Golden Globe. I remember her coming home, the next morning I wake up and she was thinking at the Golden Globe, and there was a Golden Globe statue. And you're like, ooh. You don't know what it means. And then later you meet the Hollywood Foreign Press. Before you get considered by them for an award, there's actually a setting like this. You come and meet, you answer questions, and take pictures with everybody. And it's a really interesting group of people. It's nothing like they don't look like kingmakers to me. But that's what they are. And I remember when Russell, the head of marketing for New Line, when the Golden Globes came out, and I wasn't nominated for Golden Globe. He called me. I don't think he called me anytime before or since. And he was livid. He was livid. And for another second, I felt like a big shot. Oh, hey, like the studio's pushing me for an Oscar nomination, and and like I'm in the mix. I'm part of the big game. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So that was when he knew that wasn't likely to happen. And my mom won an Academy Award when she was 14 or 15, playing in American Worker. So, like, I totally wanted to get nominated for that. That would have been awesome. But I also understood, like, 26 main cast members of The Lord of the Rings and pick one. It might have felt pretty creepy. I would want.
The one on that.
Apparently not. Old, yeah.
Sam was the actor here.
Frodo says, in regard to himself, Frodo would have gotten very far without Sam. So I think that's sufficient.
That's my rant done.
That's okay.
So
I don't really talk about the Oscar thing that much, but it's a thing. I was nominated for an Oscar when I was 24 for a short film that I directed and produced called Kangaroo Court. And so got to go to the Academy bruncheon. Awesome. It was the year Forrest Gump was there. So, and Anthony Hopkins maybe for Silence of the Lambs, maybe that year? No, I think that. All I know is like I was in a tent like this with a bunch of the coolest, most successful people in the industry, and like I had a reason to be there because my little film got nominated. And then when the award show happened, Tim Allen and somebody else were announcing our category, the live action short subject film category, and he opened it up and he was like, "Oh, something about Rue," or something like that. There was a tie. And I was like, there was a tie in our category. My wife and I were nominated with each other for Kangaroo Court. And I thought we were the second best movie. This movie Trevor about this 14 or 15-year-old kid discovering his sexuality, sobbing watching that one. I thought that was the best movie for sure. And then I thought we were pretty brave subject matter, gangs and criminal justice system and stuff like that. And but no. Trevor won, and then they announced the second one. When they announced the second one, I was literally standing up to go to the prize. And it was like, and Franz Kafka's It's a Wonderful Life. Ooh, sit back down. And that was a short story about Franz Kafka trying to write Metamorphosis. I kept getting interrupted one night in the Paris hotel or whatever it was. And so Jo Beth Williams, the actress, sitting in front of me, she was nominated for a short film that she had done. So I leaned forward and I said, I bet we came in third. Too soon. Too soon. Anyhow.
Where did your character from 50 First Dates come
51st City, it came from a wardrobe.
Really?
Basically, well, Peter and Mike, the director and producer, I met with for a long time, and they were like, we want to try with a list. And I was like, so hokey. I did not want to do it with a lisp. And I wasn't even, I was directing and acting in Jeremiah. Sci-fi, not horror. Sorry. So I was directing an episode of that, and I come to LA to present Peter Jackson with the Directors Guild Award, like to present his nomination as part of the Directors Guild. And then I was going back up there. Like my agents and managers said, you have to go meet this Adam Sandler movie. And I read it, and I'm like, this is a really funny movie for Adam Sandler. There's no part. I'm like, his brother, I didn't even know who they were. I had to go back and look at who they were talking about, because it was like, God. I didn't even see anything. Like, he only had a couple of lines of dialogue. It wasn't even that funny. So I'm like, I don't know. They said, you have to go in there. They really see you for this part. And I don't even know what they saw, like how they thought I could do that. What I had done in my career, they didn't think I could do that. But I'm getting ready to go back to Vancouver Sunday morning. My wife says, put yourself on tape. So I put myself on tape very quickly. it was actually a better example of my directing than it was in my acting. Because I did all these little cuts and things and got this big clapboard and stuff. Anyhow, it was goofy. I had my brother chasing me around with the camera. It actually made the rounds as like, this is how you put yourself on tape to get a show, a part in the show. And like, yeah, my agent, Todd Eisner at the time, he was like, I've shown that. With every agent here has seen that 10 times.
Wow.
We love that thing. And so I get a call from Adam Sandler, who's at Show West in Vegas, where they do the theater exhibitor Dog and Pony show. They're showing their new movies. And he was like, saw your tape, it's pretty funny. And I was in the editing bay when I was directing. Like, I really wanted to direct, so I was like, I didn't care what happened. I was directing, happy. He called me, he's like, and now this was 3 or 4 months after Lord of the Rings. So I had gone from 200 pounds down to 160 pounds, just gutting it out on a treadmill every day. And I was skinny, like skinny, and happy skinny. Starring in this show and directing this show and Mr. Big Shot. And he's like, would you get in the gym and work out 3 hours a day for the next like 6 weeks? Do anything you want, man. You put me in an Adam Sandler movie. He's like, great. He goes, and it's vulgar. Are you okay with vulgarity? I'm like, yeah. So I get the part. And now Guy's gone from 200 to 160, and has to go back up to like 180, 185. So I get to LA, I get back home to LA, and it's time to do the wardrobe fitting, and I go in, and it's like bumblebee, skin-tight shorts with this mesh shirt, and these very immodest. And I walked in and I took one look at the clothes, and I went, got it. I get what we're doing. So I put it on, and then it's the necklace, and it's the half backwards, and the lift, and you're like, okay, so now I'm like the monkey. I'm the dancing monkey. Then we get out to Hawaii, and they trot the dancing monkey out, and now Adam, who I'm pretty sure really wanted to play that part. I'm pretty sure that's the part he wanted to play, the man who gets the girl. I think he would have loved nothing more than being a goofball Doug. So he was like, try this, do this, try this, do this, try this. And I basically was like a puppet that he would do, and I would do it. So, you know, it worked because everywhere I go, rookie takes. It's such a great part because there's lines of dialogue that you can say and it makes people laugh, and it doesn't matter if you say it totally out of context, like, sounds kind of fruity. Dad, Mommy's got in the traffic in. Just stupid things. The best part of that is besides being in Hawaii with my kids. I guess I'm going to lose it. But this Blake who plays Cooper with dad in every Adam Sandler movie. He's a Vietnam vet, and his comedy has a lot to do with his war experience. And he and I just bonded, just talked and visited and told stories, and just really love that. Did you ask that? I figured I'd throw that in.
So can we circle back to the Goonies? I know you don't.
The Goonies, sure, the Goonies. So.
Don't you guys see? Don't you realize? This is not the plot. He was a pro.
I can still do the voice.
Movies never say die.
You get chills? You hear it?
So as a young actor, what was it, young performer? Young performer. What was it like to, you were essentially the lead in the film. What was that like for that age?
You know, there was a moment where Dick Donner decided he wanted to do a shot just of Mikey before, when they're in the basement, before they go into the tunnels for the first time. It's when they're kind of leaving the normal world and going into the pirate world. And he just wanted this shot of just me with a like shaft of light across my face, and he said, I just want you to say this, Sean. Just say, it all starts here. So I did that line, it all starts here. And it was so clearly a kind of like leading man, anchor moment for the next sequence. My mom came to see dailies that next day. She never came to the set. My Peppy was my guardian. He would take me on work and stuff. And she came that day to visit, and she saw that. And I looked at her watching, because Dick Donner, unlike most directors, really wants the actors. Now it's playback. You see everything on your phone. 2 seconds after you shoot it. But in those days, film, 35mm film, it gets processed, and then it goes up there, and they take certain takes, selects, or whatever, and they have to watch to make sure there's not a hair in the gate, or the film isn't destroyed, or that there's not something not in the background before they tear down the sets. So watching dailies has a very specific function, and most directors in that day and before that would not want actors to watch it because they would be afraid that the actors would try and change their performance based on vanity, rather than like coming within the character. And directors also are very bossy. They want to tell you what to do, you just do it. They don't want you to hurt yourself. Is an old trope. And but Dick Donner was like, we'll set aside time after lunch for you guys to go to the theater on the lot and watch dailies for a half hour, 40 minutes, and then come back to work. That's like prime, money time of the day. But he wanted us to do it. He said it would make you better. So we were there, and he's absolutely right. It absolutely did make us better. You do something, you do it a certain way, and you forget. You forget that you're working on a movie. Then, it's 6 months. You just, whatever, 4 months. You go to the commissary, and then you go to the thing. And sometimes if you're a kid, you don't know how to really be aware of what we're doing. And so it did work. Well, my mom came this one time, and she saw these dailies that were like, and it looked like, I call it the Robert Redford shot. There's shots of Robert Redford, and like, the river runs through it. Where if you put up a shot of him and a shot of Mikey in that basement scene, I swear, it could be his kid. And my mom saw that and was like, ooh, tear. And that felt like the responsibility of being a lead person somehow for a minute. But really, it was all of us. I didn't like it when I saw the movie that we were all talking at the same time in the movie. Thought we ruined it. I was wrong. That's an important phrase, FYI, particularly in today's political climate.
I was wrong.
We should all get a little bit more comfortable saying, I was wrong. In my case, it's very often true.
So another star of the film, Corey Feldman, we've had at Days of the Dead. What was it like working with him? And do you speak with him at all?
Corey and I talk all the time. All the time. Talked a lot lately. Saw him lately maybe a couple times. Corey and I kind of bucked heads a little bit. He was kind of cocky and bossy, and that was frustrating to me. But we also loved each other. He was clearly going through a hard time. He didn't have the kind of supervision or parental nurturing that the rest of us did. And it was very obvious and heartbreaking. Like, we didn't know what to do.
It is obvious.
Well, if we all go somewhere, everybody's got their parents, and I don't want to, it's up for Corey to describe his relationship with his parents the way he was. It was very clearly not healthy. He wasn't supervised properly. And you know it when you interact with kids who aren't behaving properly. You feel it. The amazing thing was he would do scenes like, he did the scene in the wishing well where he comes up and he talks about how this one was his dream. And, I was watching that and I was like, I don't know, I didn't have a very strong feeling about it. But I looked around and all of the adults were crying. And my guardian, Peppy, he was like seriously choked up. So I found myself like trying to understand the impact that Corey had on people around him. I saw him as like a brother, but not, but he was, there's some pathos about him. And he's very experienced. He did other stuff. He wanted to do a lot of other stuff. So yeah, I don't know, it was weird. I think we were helpful to each other with our areas, with our different approach, with our different backgrounds.
And one final question before we wrap this up. Josh Brolin, what was he like?
Josh is just like a hug in human form. He's just like, he was so happy. He was so happy. He was so grateful that he was getting to do what he was doing. He was so thoughtful. You know, he had a lot of, you know, we all kind of came to it with a lot of baggage from our families and our different things. You know, his dad, James, pretty successful, really guy, one of the most gorgeous guys ever on the planet, and like all of a sudden to be a kid and, you know, be 15, 16 years old when you're going through your own development and everything else, and just kind of like be aware of that all the time. That couldn't have been easy. And he was just such a like good, decent, nice guy, and all the stuff where we're like, where he's like picking me up over a shoulder or throwing me around or something, that was just natural. And when I would see him over the years after that, I haven't seen him in a long time. It's just I'm instantly 12 years old again and looking at a big brother.
You posted on social media, I don't know if it was this Halloween or last Halloween, he dressed up as his character.
I saw something like that. Wasn't he on the show?
I just saw the picture.
Yeah. He's
He had
just.
the workout machine.
Oh, did he? I saw something where he put bandana on. That's the thing. You know, at a certain moment, when he did, was it No Country for Old Men? Yeah, No Country for Old Men. And then he did, he played George W. Bush. And he had like 3 or 4 films right in a slot there. And it was like, holy cow. This guy he can do whatever he wants. He can do whatever he wants. He could be starring in 3 movies a year for the rest of his life. He's gorgeous, he's smart, he's funny, he's capable, he's talented, and he can do whatever he wants. And he was still kind of goofy about the goodies. So when I said, would you do it? He's like, yeah, of course I do it. I'm like, man, that's legit. He's an absolutely like, yeah.
When's that really gonna happen?
Thursday.
Thursday,
I don't think it's going to be a sequel anymore. I always said that I was 100% sure it would be a sequel. I'm 100% sure there will be another one, but it'll be a reboot, and maybe we'll get little cameos. Yeah. It just, I just look at all of us, and I'm like, man, I personally don't see it anymore. I don't think they see it anymore. In terms of like a continuing story of the news. That was it. Look, Corey and I put together a 3-act structure. Yeah.
It was written? You guys wrote one?
We wrote a treatment.
Where's that?
Well, we pitched it to Dick Donner, and a lot of his people were in the room, and he was listening like this. He was really, his eyes were closed, he was listening, and Corey and I were looking at each other, we were getting into it, and afterwards he goes, wow. He goes, you guys spent a lot of time on that. I go, yeah. He goes, yeah, we're not going to do that. My thing was, I want Mikey to come face to face with the real What I Learned. I was ready for it to be a time travel movie. I want to meet What I Learned in person. And Data, who's working at the CERN Super Collider, has figured out. We had a lot of good stuff.
Do it. Yeah.
Just you and me? That's an oversight in that movie. There's no brothers in that movie.
Everybody, please, round of applause for.
Hi, everybody. Are you guys here all
Ladies and
weekend?
gentlemen.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to be sitting in that little room all weekend. I hope I see you all.
See you Sunday.
My own seat.